Hi, this is the second target practice video. I'm Niels Miller, and I'm one of the co-owners of VoceVista, and I'm here with Kelley Hijleh, who is a singer and voice scientist and a longtime collaborator with my father, Don Miller, who started VoceVista back in the 1990s. Welcome, Kelley.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here. You being also my teacher because I am not a singer, unlike my father. I am not a singer. I'm a musician, but I am not a singer. But for the
Right?
last year, I have been taking lessons with Kelley, and we are getting places.
Yes, we are.
We're definitely getting better. So, but in the lessons that I've been doing with Kelley, we often go to Voce Vista for small exercises to try and do different little things and see so that it helped my understanding and to see where I'm at. And so that kind of came up with the idea of target practice, which actually that was Kelley's term, but I co-opted it. So as for teachers, you do use it with some of your students.
I do sometimes. I mean, you came preloaded with some understanding, so it's easy to jump to it without too much explanation. But yeah, occasionally, especially with things like vibrato, it can be a really useful tool.
So, as my father would say, and I like to reinforce, Voce Vista is not like some way to magically transform you into a singer. It's merely it's a great tool to analyze acoustic properties and to be able to look at them and have a better understanding of different things like vibrato and frequencies and resonances and all the good things that go into a nice voice.
Right. So even if I don't use it in every lesson, the information, the ways that I've been able to think about the voice informs every lesson that I teach.
And so today we're just going to take a quick look. This is just going to be an introductory look at vowels and how you can use the vowel chart in Voce Vista to kind of like get a better understanding of what's going on.
So, one of the interesting things about vowels is that what we perceive as a vowel is really a composite of certain frequencies. And so, one of the ways that Voce Vista makes that easy to read is by plotting those frequencies on an XY axis. So, these vowels that we see on this chart, if we click, go ahead and Nils and click on the oo vowel, for example. Good. So the x-axis is FR1 or resonance one, and the y-axis or the vertical axis is FR2 or resonance two. I'll refer to them as resonance one and resonance two from now on. So Nils has put the crosshairs of this on the oo vowel, and so we can see down here in the bottom right what the frequency values. So the first resonance is, yeah, just keep it right there. We go. The first resonance is 325, and the second resonance is 724. It's important not to think of these as ideals. They are averages that some researcher has found for the spoken language, but they're a great place to start for singing because, of course, if you want a really intelligible vowel, then you need to at least be in the neighborhood of these values. And we can also see one of the ways we can conceive of vowels is that there's space between the oo and the o. And Nils, if you actually click between oo and o, just click like click close to the oo, and then click again and yeah, and then click again closer to the O. Right. Keep going towards aw. Right. So you notice as you do that, the vowels don't suddenly change from one to the other. They sort of morph from one to the other the way colors change. And so we can play around with those zones that are between the point that the vowel is posted on the chart. So that's my explanation of the vowel chart.
Okay, great. And so a couple of other things about this. So first off, it comes up. Oops, comes up by default. It's in the Italian vowels, but we also have a bunch of other options for American vowels and German vowels and Japanese vowels, etc. Or we could, if you want to see with absolutely nothing, you could see this is just what the chart is, right? And then we're just putting these values for the particular vowels where they would, how they're defined only with their frequencies. So, but as a chart, it's just putting these two together. I don't have that correctly, or just kind of mashing the
Yeah,
two. All right. So what I'm
yeah,
going
we're
to do
just
here, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, you're just moving around to different axis points of those X and Y values.
And then, so another thing that you can do here is, we could just give it to, if we gave it a pitch to make it sound a little more like a human.
So how did you do that, Nils? What did you do to get that red line?
So I added a note slider, which I think I just did a video on recently, but it's also, if you go up here and you can click just add one note slider, which is basically like a note on the piano, and it just locks that there, and then you can just hear what an ooh sounds like if I sing at that pitch, which may sound a little bit more what you're used to rather than it's not like
Depends on how high or low you're singing, right?
right. So, that's the basic thing. But when you click, so Kelley, when I click on these different things, I'm getting a couple. I'm going to get rid of this note slider first because that's slightly confusing. Um, when I click on the ooh, I notice that these two lines over on the left on the spectrogram are also appearing and kind of move as I change. Can you explain what's going on there?
Yeah, so they're those values are going to then also be populate your spectrogram, which is the upper left-hand box, and also your power spectrum, which is the lower left-hand box. So you can see those values then on both of those charts. So they're all coordinated together.
Okay, so when I click on this ooh, because earlier I was hovering over this and changing the value, but these are reflected directly on the values right here, right? 720
Exactly.
and 331.
Exactly. They're going to be the same. Yep.
Okay.
And if you want, tell us how to get rid of, if we ever want to like sort of start over and we don't want to see those gray lines, how do we get rid of them?
I like to just oops, that's the wrong computer. I like to just hit the D key, which just clears them out. So then that
Yeah.
way you don't get confused by them. But the nice thing is when they are there, you can move them on the chart here, or you can move them individually using this. You can manipulate the chart so that when you have a value, something that's appearing in here, it's easier to get it to line up then.
Exactly. I think that's really important to understand. You can move once those gray lines are there, you can move them from any of the displays.
Okay, so let's. I was thinking maybe it would be helpful to model a couple of vowels and see, if I can sing those vowels, and maybe we can, get an idea how you might use this to steer me in the right direction.
Sure.
Okay, so should we start with ooh? And if I hit record and I hit the ooh, I will see this value appearing in the spectrogram. Ooh. All right, I'll pause it and then we can get some feedback.
Great. So your values are actually very, very similar to the chart. So we're looking for peaks and valleys, right? We're looking for the rise and the fall. Especially, I'm looking in the power spectrum on that bottom left hand. You want to move your cursor? Yeah, exactly. We could also use the spectrogram, but the color intensity differences are a little bit harder to measure than the clear peaks of the power spectrum. So yep, you're already starting to do it. Yep,
Click and
and then
drag it
line.
right onto that.
Exactly. So those are the two peaks. And as we can see, if we look back over in the chart, we're still definitely in ooh territory. But what your voice has done is sort of naturally line up those resonances with the harmonics that you actually have for that pitch. Because the chart is geared towards spoken language, right? Spoken language doesn't really care too much about resonance, it just cares about comprehensibility. But when you start sustaining a sound, you actually care how these values of the vowel align with the harmonics of the note you're singing. So singers learn to just sort of naturally make these adjustments, but sometimes being a little bit more like measuring it and sort of seeing how that alignment is working can be illuminating.
All right, let's do a couple of different other vowels. I'm going to see ah first. Ah.
Good. Because Oz, the values for R are closer together, you sometimes don't get such clear peaks and valleys, but we do still have one at H5 and the second one at H7.
and and we see it over here. It's a little, just a little bit,
Yeah, it's a little darker than the ah that's on the chart, but still in the neighborhood.
still a neighborhood. We could hear that as an ah.
Yep,
Maybe should
definitely
we
would hear
try
it as an ah.
E?
Yeah, let's try E.
E.
Good. Yeah, click around a little bit so we can get a clear. There was a nice yeah right there about see it H16.
Right. And so we move this
So
over.
you can slide that guy. Yeah.
All right, and then this is H2. I think we're on the.
Yep. That's
Maybe
right.
lower it a little bit to. There we go, to confirm. Um, all right, and yeah, it's right up in there. Okay, so
Great.
that's just kind of a basic way of, like we didn't really get into a lot of detail about it, but it's a way to sort of model things and try and find it. Obviously, there's quite a bit more involved when you're actually singing in the middle of a song or something like this, right, Kelley?
Yes, yes, there can be, and usually we're not sort of micromanaging that through VoceVista, but these kinds of target practice exercises can be really helpful. I remember being called into asked to just confer with a voice teacher who'd been working for a long time on the students' vowel, and because they had gotten sort of confused as a baritone with the color of their voice versus the color of the vowel, their second peak, which for you was at H16, was just sort of missing. So the E had a very strange quality, and I just put Voce Vista up there, and they, got that second peak kind of cooking, and all of a sudden the E was clear, and once they found it, they didn't lose it again. So it can be really great for just having that little aha moment and then moving back into maybe more traditional, like voice lesson kinds of activities.
And so I was wondering, can you use it on recordings of other people to sort of like as a way of modeling that?
You absolutely can. Sometimes with the orchestra background, it can be harder to decipher, but especially for notes that are in either a medium or low range, and where the singer has a really nice clear vowel quality. Usually it doesn't work as well in soft singing, but for nice robust singing, you can often map out the vowel and see sort of where it falls on the chart. And a lot of times the pros are exactly where you expect them to be.
So I'm just going to stop sharing here, and then
Okay.
I was just a couple of things before we close this out. I was just it. So does my vowel have to fit perfectly into that bucket? I think you sort of mentioned it, but
No, it absolutely does not. In fact, sometimes that would be a disadvantage. You're really just you're looking to be in the neighborhood of the vowel that you're singing, and then align it optimally for the note you're actually singing.
and that's maybe my resonance may line up a slightly different way than somebody else, or like if
Absolutely. If you were a high coloratura soprano, it might be sitting on a higher frequency, especially that E vowel might be instead of H16, it might be like H17 or 18, and that could still sound completely like an E vowel.
and does that have anything to do with vowel modification? Is this like that?
Sometimes vowel modification, but it also is often related to height. So a lot of coloratura sopranos are about 5 feet, and so they're the size of the container is going to have an impact on where those frequencies are. And so obviously children too would have higher frequencies, and absolutely because they're shorter.
Right. And just the last thing, you noted that too. You sent a little note to me that said, you want to make sure that the resonances interact with the harmonics takes priority over the vowel accuracy, right? So that this is
Yeah,
the
that's
goal.
another way of saying the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, right, the interaction of those frequencies with the actual harmonics of the note you're singing for singing, and especially with sustained singing, matters more than whether that crosshair is right on the vowel that's in the chart.
All right. Well, I think that's I feel like we've got a good start on it. There may be some updates in the future. Who knows? We may get more advanced, but I think for somebody like me who's been at it for about a year, I think it's been very helpful, and you know
Good. I always hope that this encourages people to just play. It instead of going into it with a "Am I right? Am I wrong?" Just like when I sing, what do I notice? It can be just another kind of a mirror that helps you think maybe a little differently about an aspect of your singing.
all right. Well, thank you very much, Kelly, and
Oh,
hope hope to see you soon. I know I will.
no. Bye.
Bye.